Games, board games. We'll chat together. Board games that are on Kickstarter. It's one of several crowdfunding things that we'll talk about once I finish singing. And we've got a bit of thoughts. I mean, seriously, when have we not? But we'll get to them very soon. We can chat through internet devices even though we're not in the same room. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good
Oh,
evening,
right.
wherever you
Yes.
are.
Okay.
It's time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today, the main topic is we're going to chat about how running a Kickstarter feels. And I thought, yes, we'll probably, in the recent highlights, talk a little bit about Spiel very briefly. But yeah, I thought it would be interesting to compare and contrast. My Kickstarters have been much smaller in terms of the pledge level tiers. They've been for smaller games, even cheaper than the pocket campaigns, frankly. And like, yeah, whereas the Gibsons one is a really weird thing because here's a company that's never been on Kickstarter before, and it's got this amazing history. It's been doing these things for like generations, but then for this new crowd on Kickstarter, it's a new crowd there, if you know what I mean, which is kind of
Yes,
interesting.
it indeed
And
is.
I thought we talk like I've done. I discovered. I thought it was my 13th, but it's in fact my 14th Kickstarter. Not all of them have been finished
Right. Oh,
yet.
wow.
So one of them is currently running. Two of them are outstanding, and this one is going to help me get stuff together. I'll talk about that. But Alan, what's your experience with Kickstarter? Would you like to talk about it very briefly?
Of actually running Kickstarter campaign, doing them.
Sure.
Well, I've done two main ones in terms of being on the science of actually running it. That is our one we did in. We've brilliantly selected March 2020 as the best time for doing a Kickstarter. That was for Ming Voyages and the March Progress, two of our Pocket Campaigns games, and then being involved in the Gibsons Kingmaker one. I mean, I don't think I would call myself central to the Gibsons Kingmaker Kickstarter. I was more of a support person, but it was good to see the kind of behind the scenes things that were going on. So that's my main that side of the fence. The other side, I don't back a huge number of Kickstarters. I've probably backed 10 or so over the years, which is obviously not a huge amount, but one could say I'm familiar with the genre.
And even here, I didn't realize it wasn't like, even though you were listed as a collaborator and you presumably had editing access and access to stuff behind the scenes, it is listed as being created by Two Tomatoes. And so it was presumably done because they had a little bit more experience. You were hoping to tap into their existing fan base. Is that?
Yes. Although a couple of our linked products, there had been a couple of Snowdonia Kickstarters earlier, not run by Surprise Stare, where we'd seen it run, but we hadn't really been involved. That was both, I think, the second edition by In Boards and Cards, and also the deluxe big one by NSKN. But we hadn't really been involved in the management of that at all. So we'd seen it. So I figured that really for our first dabbling on the running a Kickstarter side of things, I thought we would go with a much more experienced partner, Two Tomatoes, who we work with on Pocket Campaigns, have got loads and loads of experience of running Kickstarters. So we figured that we would learn first, and then later on we might strike out on our own.
And looking through their campaigns,
to be fair, it's always a team.
Well, Yeah, I guess
Oh,
in
well,
theory.
so, okay. From our perspective, because a lot of the skills that I think that we would need for running a successful Kickstarter campaign, we don't have. So marketing and stuff. I know you've got more skills in those kinds of areas than we have. So I figured that we should. I was going to say lean on, use help, get
Yeah,
help from
it's like that song,
people who are
Who
really,
Was
really,
It?
really
Bill
experienced. Yeah.
Withers, who, to paraphrase, lean on someone else.
Yeah, exactly, and make it into a team. And that, I suppose, is this a factor of it being a larger Kickstarter? I don't know. We can discuss that later. The whole
I think
team
it
aspect.
kind of is, because when you've got a team, when people are able to bring different things to the table, I mean, I was able to do a certain amount, and I'm going to say, yes, things are a team effort, in that if you actually made a game totally on your own, like you never play tested it with anyone else, and I don't know if I would trust you, like for that to be it would. I don't know, like it depends on your game design repertoire, and if you're trying to do something kind of fairly avant-garde, like we didn't play test this at all, and like, but even we didn't play test this at all. I'm going to be frank. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I assume that the title is actually true, but I feel like if they had, assuming that it is true, if it, like, I don't know, like, were you thinking that it clearly isn't true?
And I think you have to have a clear view of the concept of the project that you're putting together, and there's no reason why you couldn't do a project which basically is, oh yeah, you could actually say, no, we haven't played this. If you've got a fairly clear view of how this is going to make progress during the campaign, how the project is going to develop. I think I've been involved in a lot of project management things, and the point about project management isn't that everything has to be fixed and you know exactly what's going to happen at every stage. It's that you've got a clear plan which can
So you
be
know the
changed and
direction.
modified as things happen. You have to know
Yes,
the
I
direction. You have
think
to have a
this is
clear view. If you
100%
haven't got a clear
correct.
view of the direction, I mean, that, of course, with current politics going on, that's of course completely irrelevant. You know, obviously Liz Truss had a clear direction,
Oh my
and
gosh.
really she didn't have a flexible. No, let's not go there. Sorry, I apologize.
Yes. So I've not actually shown the screen for Kingmaker. Kingmaker Kickstarter. There we go. It's already in Google. So yeah, looking at Kingmaker.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm just making the box visible on the screen. There
is
we
it
go.
just finished?
Yay. It's finished. Yes, it finished on the 14th. It finished on when's the 14th? When was the 14th? Yeah, last Friday. That's right.
Oh, so it did.
Did you not realize? Did you not realize? Oh, yeah.
I kind of knew, but then I was busy
on.
with other things. I totally forgot.
Well, yes.
I do apologize.
There's no reason why you should know. Really.
So I think that's like 1,000 backers, basically 1,500 backers, £110.
Yeah.
And it's the scale of a Kickstarter, what is necessary, what you need is an interesting one, because quite often these aren't super large numbers, right? I mean, it's easy to look at the massive successes. I mean, frankly, I would cite a game about wee whimsical creatures as a massive success, where if I look that up, I can see that there were 814 backers, 5,500. And for the scale of this, that was really good. That was
yes, that's very, very good. I mean, that's actually more backers than we got. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Sorry, more backers than we got for the Ming and March.
Oh, yes.
With 2 tomatoes, yeah.
I mean, I will point out
so
that is
really
people pledging typically £8 within the UK to get the game, and lots of so the funding goal isn't quite high. But like one thing that's really interesting is with my latest Kickstarter, it's a relatively smaller number, but like it wow, to pay basically the printing costs, which if it had gotten to £1,500, so this is a weird one. Can I just explain before we get into the past thing and everything? So
go for it.
I am printing 1,000 boxes at once. That's what makes economic sense for me to, even though it's printed on demand, they need to be cut. It's the cutting that's the bit where you need to do 1,000 at once. And so for the cutting, that means that I could actually do a variety of things, which is what I did for a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips, beetroots, or radishes. So this time, I've firstly gotten them to improve the box a wee bit. That one was slightly the wrong size, slightly too thick to be comfortable for the cards. It had a bit too much air room. It was potential to be crushed. And also, more importantly for me, for my costs, it meant it was a small parcel rather than a large letter, which is very sad.
Yeah,
now,
that's
we've gone
critical.
through a lot of calculations, and even though it's not been printed yet, we're very hopeful that this will be a large letter. If it isn't, I will be very sad and probably out of pocket. But yeah, I guess with 73 backers, or let's say it's 300 even by the end, that's not the worst amount of risk. It could still, you know, obviously I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it all goes well. But anyway, the other thing that's interesting to me is because this is a little bit more expensive than my normal thing. So looking at my campaign, when you get to the tiers where you're actually getting stuff, you can get a game for £9, which is basically what the price is going to be. I've been quite clear, you don't get any saving on this, but if you buy multiple games, you do get a £1 discount on subsequent games. But it's a really small thing. I don't think that's why people back my Kickstarters. I like to believe that people are backing my Kickstarters because they understand I need this to kind of make it happen. And then the Bezzy bundle, which is all 4 decks, you get a sizable discount, but it's still, and yeah, including postage, it'll be 32 in the UK, 36 to USA.
That's good. Yeah.
And that's what most people have gone for. And it makes sense. That is the best value thing. And that's what...
That's interesting because that makes it comparable, really, to one of our Pocket Campaigns games, which was I think it was about 20. Mind you, we were doing it in euros, so I think it was €32 for I think something around that price for.
Well, for yours, it looks like €18.
Oh yes, I meant for
game, and then 34 for both games.
For both games. Yeah, that's right.
And a lot more people
euros.
went for that when I compare 223 for. And for some reason, March of Progress really wasn't as popular as Ming Voyages. I hadn't noticed that before.
It's probably less accessible. It's a different style of game from Ming Voyages and Cousins War. So I had always expected March of Progress to be slightly less popular. Although in fact, Tabletop Gaming Live, it was the most popular game that we sold. Which I was really, and maybe people in Manchester just like those kinds of war games. I don't know, but that was good. That was interesting.
March of Progress since it was released.
Published. No, but you did play it. You did play it in the early days.
No, but like assuming that it's basically the same game, which I assume you've just changed this now. It's like what I really love about it is it's so tight and tactical, and you see everything. Whereas Ming Voyage, and then it's like, oh, we've done that. We've solved this kind of really. It is, they're correct. There's no randomness in that game, is there? There's just a chaos of not knowing what the other player is going to play.
That's right. There's no randomness in that game. Yeah, that's right.
So I wouldn't describe it as a traditional perfect information strategy game and whatnot, because you don't take turns, you play simultaneously, you've got to guess what's going on. But at the same time, it is kind of like this mind game. and then you
It
start
is.
getting into that, and then what, because it's so tight, it definitely felt like that's something you want to replay, and then eventually, okay, we go to a new scenario. Whereas Ming Voyages, it's kind of like this one thing that you are,
Yes.
okay, we're learning this together, and we get to know the cards. And I mean, for my tastes, I would well, if you said, hey, we can spend an entire afternoon playing one of them, I know which one I would prefer. And I go with March of Progress.
Yeah. I think I would. Well, I would do the same, obviously, because I designed. No, I designed both of them actually. But
That's not
yes,
always
I
true,
would.
is it? Do you always
No,
prefer your
it's
own
not.
designs?
No, I don't. No, I'm just lying. No, but I think we had so much fun designing and playtesting March of Progress. We played that World War II scenario, for example. We played that over and over again to try to get the balance right, because it's asymmetric and there's a lot in it. And as you say, it's very, very tight. And that was so much fun to do that, to work out how to balance it off between the two sides. I mean, I think we've done a good job. But then, when you play testing, you've probably play tested it 50 times or whatever. But if there's 10,000 plays out there, we may find that that one side's got a slight advantage. But I don't know. Anyway, but we're getting away from from Kickstarters a bit. I'm wondering.
Yeah, I feel like we
Going
should
back
take a
to
step back and actually talk
Kickstarters.
about
Oh,
recent highlights, living life and
Okay.
seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So, very recent highlights. I'm going to say, obviously, I launched my own
Yeah.
Kickstarter, and
Yes.
that was done yesterday, and it's currently at £2,000 exactly, which is
Yes. I mean,
quite
I'm
exciting.
glad you mentioned that, Bez, because obviously we need to talk about that and get that in early. Talking about that in early. That's good. Thank you.
But the other thing that happened, um, well, honestly, I didn't do a lot else other than that. I did, yeah, Chris. And so, just for full disclosure, I've been doing less stuff since, I'm going to say, 2017. So when it came for Wibble Plus Plus Deluxe and Kitty Cataclysm, Denim very much helped me get over the line with that and do
Right.
the final pre-production of stuff. And Chris has been helping me for a while. Sadly, no longer has the time to help me as much as I would like. But because these are all games that Chris did the cards for, it made sense for Chris to also do the boxes for them. And so
Yeah.
I got all the boxes and the cards last night. We had a lot of back and
Right.
forth with my sort of art direction and giving Chris some feedback. And then this morning, I'm going to look through them, having slept a bit, having hopefully been rested. And if I give Chris any small bits of feedback, any, like, if there's some typo that got in there accidentally, I might even share these boxes on the Kickstarter. That feels like a reasonable thing to do. If
That
anyone
definitely
spots any
does.
typos, then
Yes. Go
we
for it. Yeah.
can change them all. And so, yeah, that's what's going on. I've made sure to get outside. I did cook myself a lovely meal. I cooked myself,
Good.
spent bits of time cooking a pepper in the oven. I was following a recipe very carefully, a bit of beef, a bit of socks. It was all right. I honestly, yeah, cooking for one person is kind of weird because it means that I end up with this giant meal. And that
Yes.
means
Yes.
that if I'm
Yes.
cooking, I need to make sure that I don't eat very much for the rest of the day because I just can't control myself from finishing it all in one sitting. And I need to accept that. But
Yeah.
generally, the other recent highlights that we've had has, of course, been Spiel. Would you like to talk about how that was for you?
Yes, certainly. I mean, my recent highlights are getting back. Yes, getting back from Spiel, which doesn't feel like that long ago. It was only we drove. Well, as you know, because we drove back on Monday. We had a lovely Indian meal on Monday evening, which was really nice. And my recent highlight since then, before I go back to Spiel, has been to do with this Kingmaker thing, if I can point. Yeah, that one there. I've been madly checking the rules because I've got the first not the first draft. I've got the main. I don't know how you describe it. The main draft with more or less final artwork and approaching final layout. So that has required loads and loads and loads of time to check it all. So that's been my kind of highlight.
And this is
But
something that
fortunately, that's all
sometimes
done.
people forget, that you can't have literally, well, you can, but you're almost never going to have literally everything ready to print. There's always going to be a little bit of, okay, that's done. Now let's have another look at all these things. And there's all these logistics. As you said, you do have that team, Gibsons, who is very skilled and very experienced at getting things from the factory to the market to the shops. But have they had a lot of experience with direct sales?
They haven't had a lot of experience with direct sales. No, their main selling is through distribution and retail. So they haven't done the Kickstarter before. So I mean, they do some direct sales at shows and things, but if by direct sales you mean it's like off their website, or I don't know if they even sell off their website. I don't know. I honestly should know, but don't. But their main route to market is retail.
Fulfillment partner?
They have their own. They have their own distribution arrangements around the world. They are very much a traditional, production to retail company, as if they're a family company, and so they very much do the conventional. They manufacture the games, then they use their own network for distribution. They have bases in Europe and in Australia or Australasia, and in the United States. So they got they've got a distribution network in their main markets.
But I think the key part is that everything is going to be a new challenge for them slightly. As they said, this is their first Kickstarter, but you don't have to worry about any of that. You just have to worry about your little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go back to Spiel.
Yes, and so where you were actually playing a bit of Kingmaker.
We were. I was demoing Kingmaker. We didn't actually play it. No. The problem I found with Kingmaker in an environment like a show is that because it's a 3-hour game, well, up to 3 hours really for a 4-player game, for example, that's a huge commitment from people who are going to sit down and play. So we tend to, and we generally have quite a small stand, so we may not have enough space for playing. So what we have done with Kingmaker is we have it set up on a table, and we have a nice Kingmaker banner which Gibson supplied to us, and we have shown off the stuff. So, thank you, Dutch Yoda. Thank you. That's really nice.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you very much. Yay. So we are really showing off the product rather than actually playing it, and actually that works quite well, because we have found there are relatively few people who want to sit down cold, as it were, and play Kingmaker. We didn't have. I think we've displayed it at UK Games Expo and at Tabletop Gaming Live and at Spiel, and we've only actually had, I think, 2 in the whole of those conventions, 2 requests to actually play on the stand.
Where were they?
Sorry?
Which conventions were those requests in?
One was at Expo, and one was at Tabletop Gaming Live.
And were you able to fulfill those requests, or was it a case of there's no one else wanting to play it? There's only one person.
Yeah, that's the difficulty.
It is really difficult, and I wonder if, maybe, I mean, to be fair, KCON, you want to go for your fun. You don't want to be going there and demoing stuff. But I feel like at a smaller convention, if you were there, where it's like, okay, we were 100, 200, 300 people, and we don't have so much to do. But I very much feel like Spiel So talking for myself, I think I mentioned this before, but at UK Games Expo, I would get like 10, 12, or 10, 12, 12 like people for my 2 p.m. events. And that's kind of a big part of how I
Yeah,
measure
yeah,
my busyness. I am able to keep people at the table for a long time because I've got enough games at this point that if someone enjoys my games, then I
yeah,
can show them
yeah,
20
yeah, yeah.
more. And if
Yes,
someone walks away, I am extroverted enough that so many people at Spiel, I'm going to say it out loud, so many people at Spiel are not very good at bringing people into their stand. Many people,
that's correct.
who will
Mm,
literally
mm.
just sit down and even look at their phone. And I understand if you're spending the whole day there, it's tiring, but have a wander and come back and get some help from other people.
Yep,
Because what you
yep.
should be doing is having like a quick thing that you say to someone, like, do you like words games? Would you like to try a quick party game? Or just say hello and interact with people. See if they slow down. If they slow down and are curious, explain what you're doing. And
Yes, yeah, drawing people in is a particular thing that you need to do. I mean, at any convention. I mean, I would
uh,
say that the major reason, going back to Kingmaker on Stand, one of the major reasons that we didn't actually play is that not only is that a commitment from those players, and you have to have enough players who are going to commit to a significant length of time, it's also a big commitment from one of us. And if we were going to play Kingmaker, we would have had somebody actually dedicated to doing that, because it requires quite a lot of explanation. And of course, I would have to say that it's a surprise day game stand. I want to sell my games. Obviously, I do want to sell Kingmaker as well, but at the conventions, we were focusing on selling the pocket
games that
campaigns.
can actually
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah. You can
bought,
actually, yeah, and
it
you can
makes a
play the
lot of
smaller
sense.
games. You can play the smaller games. You can demo the smaller games and play a couple of turns. That's not a problem. It's much more difficult with
And
something as big
honestly, a
as
large
Kingmaker.
part of the reason for Busy Bargain Bags came about when I was doing playtesting
Mm.
during a small market convention where it was somewhere a little bit in the northeast of London. I can't remember the exact name of the place. It was a short bus ride from where I used to live.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was invited as a special guest. It was super lovely. I demonstrated games. I had a few prototypes, and people would be like, "Oh, can I buy this?" Even though it was clearly
yeah,
just prototype art, but people
yeah,
were
yeah.
okay with
Hmm.
that. And this isn't like my relatively nice hand drawn art. Um, sorry, that's relatively nice hand drawn art. This is
Yes,
like art that I literally took
you're
about
relatively
one
not
minute
nice. Yeah,
per card. And people are like, oh,
yeah,
can I buy this? And then
yes,
that got me thinking, I need to have a few bags and
that you
stop
can sell.
playtesting
Yeah,
things that people can't buy. When it's a card game, then I can say, yes, if you enjoyed it, you can buy it
yeah,
for a
yeah,
fiver.
yeah.
And
It, that is
that's
a thing. That is a thing specifically about Spiel as well. Sorry to
But
interrupt,
one
but
thing I want to say about Spiel before I pass it back to you
mm,
is going back to, yes, bringing people in the stand. Yes, I can do that.
yeah,
But the
yes,
2 p.m. events are an actual fair reflection on how many people are there to see me and how busy
right.
my stand is going to
Yeah,
be. And
that's
at
quite
UK
good.
Games Expo,
Mm,
I think that there's little enough going on that people get to wander around. They will literally see everything in about one
yes.
day. I think
Mm,
one day is enough
hmm.
to glimpse everything at
Yeah, I
UK
think
Games
that's right.
Expo
Yeah,
and
but
look
not
at it
Spiel.
for a minute and say, do I want to play this more or not?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
that means that people are a little bit more relaxed. People have the time to say, you know what, Bez? Bez is doing a 2 p.m. event. That'll be fun. I will go there.
yeah,
Whereas at Spiel, it's a case of, Bez does a 2 p.m. event. I know I will have fun. And even though I've told everyone that that will be fun, I'm not going to go there because I've got meeting.
yeah. Exactly,
I've got
exactly. Yeah,
1,000 new games that I've never seen. I've got a few hundred games that I'll want to play, but I'm never going to get to play. And so I'd rather
yeah,
try to do things that I'll never get to do any other way. And that's
yeah.
kind of how I generally feel about Spiel.
Yeah, I
And
think Spiel is different. Spiel is different. Spiel is certainly for a lot of people. It's a con to go to and try new stuff out. That includes buying and playing. It does definitely. I mean, it is focused on sitting down at a table and playing. and I accept that. It's just that, of course, at Spiel we had a lot of people who just wanted to buy Kingmaker, but they couldn't at the moment. I have had people actually backing the Kickstarter on the stand, which is really good. So I mean that's been very positive.
That's awesome.
But you mentioned other smaller events. Yes, I always try to play Kingmaker at other events, but I try to have it at smaller events. So for example, Charlie and I are going to GridCon in November, and we are going to be running a Kingmaker session there for up to 5 players, I think. And then we've got another convention the weekend after GridCon, and we're organizing a session there as well. So when it's a smaller, and we've done it at Bacon and others. So the smaller conventions where the focus is much more on playing, it's not on selling at all.
I think I
where
agree.
it's more of a game playing event.
That
I would tend to organize it.
Are a brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant? Just to keep us kind of moving forwards. Because otherwise we could just chat for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 hours. I don't know.
Yes.
So just to keep us moving forwards and keeping it relevant to Kickstarter, specifically doing in-person demos for stuff that people can back on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Like when I go to KCON, I am primarily there to have a good time, to enjoy myself, but I am going to spend one day behind a table when I'm like, okay, here's my stuff, and I am running 2 p.m. events each day. I do have a totally brand new thing, which is actually in this bag. It is a game about quickly grabbing cards and judging them against free descriptions. It's a totally new game. I just got it yesterday.
Totally new. That's very sophisticated.
Well, no, sorry, I got it on Monday. It's old now.
It's old. It's just old.
Yeah, 2 days old. Yeah,
not new. It's not new anymore.
It's being released at KCON specifically. In all seriousness.
Right. Oh, okay.
And so this is my thing where I do a new game for, I guess, all the UK conventions that I've been to as an exhibitor, and of course I'm going to make sure that people get a chance to play one of these things to say, hey, I'm curious about a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements. Can I have a go of it? Of course. And I think that the reason that Kickstarter in-person demos are brilliant is because that gives people a chance to try before they buy. It gives people a chance to see if the game is for them. It gives people a chance to like actually pick up the game and be, oh, that's interesting text. Oh, okay, I can see that. As opposed to
I think it's a chance for people it's a chance for us and for the potential customer to see if it resonates. Well, I think I think we came up with that resonance idea when we were having our Indian meal on Monday, didn't we? The idea that what we're trying to do with the potential audience is get it's not just engagement. I think resonance is a really almost done by the right people. Yeah,
I like this because it kind of speaks to something that I was saying the other day, and I told you about in the car about Coral, if you remember that.
Oh.
Where, yes, as a demonstrator, I don't want to say it, like I was actually talking about this with Jason last night, where they said, my friend went and played Small World, and then the demonstrator was lacking such enthusiasm.
We
thought, is this a terrible game? And then they played it against someone else who owned the game. And wow, this is totally
really
different.
Good. Yes.
And so,
I think one of the reasons I know I'm going to blow my own trumpet a bit, but I think one of the reasons why March of Progress was so successful at Tabletop Gaming Live was that I was more in the zone doing that than I think I've been for quite some while. So I think I was demoing it a lot better, and it really does help to have somebody who's got that passion and conviction, commitment to the game. But then again, of course, if you can start doing that, if you get good response from the customers, it really does. It really does help a lot. I mean, for example,
if you're not able to be passionate about the games that you're demonstrating, I think it's very unlikely that you'll be able to inspire passion and enthusiasm.
Yes, I think so. I agree. I agree. Also, it can be a little bit dispiriting, and it does. It happens a fair amount at Spiel that you can demo a game and they really love it, and they play it even, and then they say, "Yeah, I'm really having a fabulous time," and then they just go away and don't buy it. But I
And
mean, you
that's
have to accept
okay.
that. That's okay. That's certainly okay. But it can be a little bit. It can be a little bit
Dispiriting.
dispiriting, and you have to. It certainly takes some getting used to. I mean, I'm used to that now. It happens, which is fine. I mean, yeah, you can't
Yeah,
expect.
20 years.
There should never be an expectation. I think that's the problem that some people do have when they're demoing. Is there shouldn't be an expectation that the customer is going to buy the game. If they enjoy it, that's sufficient. If they buy it, obviously that's, well, a bit more than icing on a cake. It's the cake. But I mean, having customers who enjoy playing the game is what you really want.
Yeah, and whilst we try to be positive in this section, I would be interested to ask Yoda or anyone watching what makes a brilliant demo for you. Because for me, it's being it, having a bit of agency. So I want to be taught enough rules that I get to make some decision. I don't want to be taught like for 5 minutes or more. Okay, just place this thing here. That's a good move.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah.
like, if they said, "Oh, you could do this or that," and said, like, they don't need to tell me all the rules. If they say, "Okay, a sensible thing to do at the start is either storm up the castle or solidify your defenses." I don't know why I'm thinking about military stuff because you've got Kingmaker in the background. I should get some whimsical stuff in the background. But yeah, and that's at least I've got some agency. I want them to make sure that the game operates as it should be, and I think that's almost more important than teaching the rules. Making sure that the game kind of flows as it should.
Yes, the demo isn't about teaching the rules. It's about, I think I do like this concept of resonance. It's getting that resonance between this is the game experience and this is the customer, and if it's for them, there will be that resonance, and you'll see it. You should see it in the body language and the expression of the customer, potential customer, the person you're talking to, and for example, what one game I really love demoing is the Cousins War, because, as you say, you can give them some agency, because the Cousins War, at the end of each round, you fight a battle, and it's a variety of lies dice. So you can actually most people have at least heard of lies dice, and they know it's about secretly rolling dice.
And if they don't, it doesn't take too long.
And if they don't, it takes 20 seconds. So you can actually play a battle out, and that gives them a feel, and it's a fun thing to do. I don't like using the word fun necessarily, but it is a fun thing to do, to see if you can win that battle. And that's really nice.
We came up with this in the, it might have been me saying it in the restaurants in Upminster. And I think this is a really strong thing, because yes, I want my games to resonate with people. I don't want people to necessarily have fun with everything. I don't think that sees the power when it gets released. I'm going to say when rather than if, because I'm optimistic like that. When it gets released, it isn't going to be something that people necessarily find fun, but it will hopefully be worthwhile. It will resonate. It will strike a chord. And yeah, I feel like we could, if I wanted to, I could sort of go along a bell metaphor and say, I'm like a ringing bell. I'm going to ring across the land and resonate. I feel like we've talked about demos. We've agreed that getting something out there is brilliant. Let's talk about Kickstarter and the emotions here. I've also, and Yoda says the demo should be an experience. I mean, well, I can do that. Like, I can stab you constantly. I mean, that's not a good experience, but it's certainly an experience.
Well, with Kingmaker, we have got there was a YouTube video where we played a couple of rounds of Kingmaker with a YouTube content creator, Restless Kaiser. So if you want to see the Kingmaker being played, we have a tabletop simulator version, so you can see it on there. And I think that's quite important to have something that shows the game in operation. I personally don't think it necessarily has to be a full game. I mean, people, backers often ask for a full, let's have a full video of a whole game of Kingmaker, or let's see somebody playing the whole solo game so we can see what it's like. I don't think that's necessarily easy to do, especially for something like Kingmaker, which is huge. And I don't think it's necessarily important to do, but certainly being able to see somebody playing the game is helpful. Obviously, you have introductory video, but we have got that YouTube snip. It's not snip. It's about an hour or so of us talking about and primarily playing.
You need to give an idea
really
of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I do
Yes.
think that I'd like to talk a bit about my own Kickstarter and this whole Busy Bargain Bag model. And
go for it.
Oh, we just had our 75th backer. Awesome.
Excellent.
But you see that tick over just right now?
Yay, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, these are for games, as you can see from left to right. I've got the cards for a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements. And those cards reflect quite closely what you will get. Then you've got some cats from a game about counting cats, shapes, and colors that keeps getting trickier. There will be a third color, so there will be yellow in there. And then we've got a game about quickly matching words to pictures, but never words to words or pictures to pictures. And finally, a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises. And all of these games were released, I'm going to say, before UK Games Expo. Yes, before UK Games Expo. So that's a fair while away. I mean, it's not eons away. It's not years. But I had them all. Some of them were in £5 Busy bargain bags. And even at UK Games Expo, a game about drawing creatures, complementing drawings and complementing the complements was already in the £7.50 bag. But as time, I did tweak these games. At UK Games Expo, I saw people trying to count these cats and people saying, oh, I need to count 2 things at once. Oh my gosh, this is so confusing. Hello, Saints. Lovely to see you. Quick hello.
Hi.
And Yoda says, talking about your own Kickstarter on your own channel. How dare you?
It's very self-referential. Yeah, I know.
I should probably do another link for people who are just coming in. But yeah, the point is, counting cats, I love it. And myself and Kat, a person called Kat, and also at least one person in France who specifically wanted the first edition to be shipped over, we all like the extra confusion of, oh, now I need to count 2 things. But most people at UK Games Expo, you could see them almost recoil at that point. And these are gamers. We're like, oh my gosh, now I need to count the dancing ones and the lying down ones. And the truth is, once you've played it quite a bit, once you're good at your arithmetic, the faster thing to do is keep in mind how many cats there are on the table and count the thing that you're not counting, because there's 3 things in total. So that means that there'll be 1 thing that you're not counting. Count that thing, subtract that from the total, and that's slightly faster to do than adding up 2 things. It's kind of fast, but that's how I find it. And but anyway, that whole thing, for most people, it was just, oh my gosh, this is too much arithmetic. And having 1 thing to count, that was enough. I played it with designers. They were like, yeah, this is definitely enough. I'm like, yeah, why did I even do that? That was,
but what we're supposed to be talking about is there's the emotions and the results and the approaches.
And the point is that I played it out. I played it again. I tested it out, and people know what they're getting. And then by demonstrating it, for other people, they played a fun game, and some people bought it, and some people were like, yeah, I like this. I like it enough to buy it. But for myself, it's also meant that I was able to get that feedback that, sure, some people like the counting, but for the majority of people, it's just a smidgen too much going on at those points.
So is that a change you're making in the Kickstarter campaign, or is it a change you made before the Kickstarter
That's
campaign?
a change I made for the previous Busy bargain bag.
Right.
These are actually, so the 3 on the left are actually going to be the 3rd edition. because they were printed once as a £5 busy bargain bag,
Right.
then once with some, let's call them meaningful changes,
Yeah.
and then now here. Whereas, and lots of love, Yoda. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. You.
Whereas Cute Comical Creatures, I got it out. It was already a thing that I was confident about. I mean, it's basically a re-implementation of something before. And so I was like, yeah, this is the game, this is done. And yep, it's definitely done. And I think what I'm saying is that going through that testing process with the Betsy bargain bags, this is something I'm going to move to more and more, saying, yes, these are parts of the testing process. I'm going to almost embrace that. And I'm going to be more upfront if I can be and say, yes, by
Yes.
buying
Yes.
this, it's not tested as much as I would ideally like. But by buying
Yeah.
a first
Yeah.
edition, you get now a little bit that says it's limited to 50 copies, which is going to be true. And a bunch of them I'm going to keep myself. Some of them I'm going to give to, myself and the people who works on it, the people who help me at the stand, and potentially a publisher. I don't know. But yeah, so there'll be maybe 40 copies at most out in the wild. And so it'll be a fairly limited thing. And hopefully that and a cheaper price will offset the feeling of, oh, I got this undercooked game. And when I
Yeah.
say undercooked, I don't mean to say that this is something that I feel might be bad. I think it's something that I think is almost certainly good, and it might be great, but I'm not sure. Because
So are we really talking about there's different style in a sense, just generalizing a little bit? There's different styles of Kickstarters, aren't there? I mean, for example, if I look at what we did with March and Ming, with March and Ming, basically, the games were finished, more or less finished. We had artwork, which was more or less final. We really didn't want to make any. We didn't want to make any extensive changes at that point, and we didn't have to. It was the reaction from backers was really very, very positive.
just to clarify, I'm not talking about changes during the Kickstarter. I'm talking
No,
about this
yeah,
whole process being before the Kickstarter
yes, yeah,
and
sure,
embracing that. And I think that's the key thing of having those bags and then potentially even a second edition bag if there needs to be some meaningful change. And in the case of, let me get up that screen, in the case of a game about drawing creatures complementing the drawings and complementing the complements, the only difference is the graphics. So
yeah,
I got Chris to do these. Actually, let me scroll down so you can see a better shot. Like all these lovely, colorful backgrounds are completely superfluous. They don't change the game, but it's kind
yeah,
of nice. It gets a
yeah,
nice
yeah,
frame of mind to have those backgrounds rather than it just being a solid color.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
for
in a sense, it's how much development work do you do before the Kickstarter? I mean, and
yeah,
I think that's a big thing. I mean, I think there is mileage actually in allowing a lot more involvement of potential backers in the process of doing the creation, not just before the Kickstarter, which you could do because you could advertise your page. You know, advertise your page a month or so in advance, and you'd have to make separate arrangements somehow rather than through the Kickstarter. But you could get reactions from people before and do some development work as part of that Kickstarter project process. I think there's a reluctance to do that because it means that costings might change, and that's always rather tricky. But for example, with March of Progress, we had some early reactions that it would be quite a nice thing to bung in a 3-player variant, which I hadn't actually planned to do at all. But we were
and
able
so it
to
was more a
do
case
that.
of you not realizing that there was demand for this, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes. And it turned out that we were able to do a 3-player variant, and it only required 3 cards and a little bit of text. So actually,
Very nice.
that was very nice, and we had space on the sheet to do that. So we're able to. But I think that's the kind of thing I would like to always allow for in a Kickstarter. A minor change that you can fit in would be very, very helpful as part of so backers feel they are part of a real development. I would even like to go further. I like the idea, which I think we've talked about before, you and I, Bez, is the idea that you actually have a Kickstarter where you've got a strong idea and probably quite a lot of design development done, but you're really absolutely finishing it off as part of the Kickstarter campaign.
I would
process.
like to do a it would be interesting to do a Kickstarter campaign that was like 60 days, and it was like, okay, I'm going to do the entire game during this Kickstarter.
I'm not sure about the entire game because you have to have some parameters for
and some
costings.
vision.
I mean, for example, I was thinking maybe the game that used to be about gnomes, that might be something that you could actually. I mean, we've got a strong idea, or not a strong idea. We've got a strong product there.
But in terms of what the theme is, in terms of what the and yes, sorry, I've not replied to your email.
No, that's okay. It was only yesterday.
Kickstarter.
No, I'm not expecting a reply at the moment. But so finishing off things like the precise detail of card effects, that's something. Or the precise detail of artwork.
I would be less keen
It'd be interesting to do that.
I would be so. I want to talk about my previous thing, a game about selecting 7 cards, speedily searching for synergy.
Yes.
Because for that one, I actually launched that before I went to Tabletop Scotland. And then it was like, okay, here it is in a bag. It's a £5, or you can go on the Kickstarter and get it. And I almost certainly undercharged for that, but I did get like more than 200 backers, which is great.
Yeah.
And as part of that, as part of having a decent number of people, you do get bits of enthusiasm. And I think I would, even though we're really running out of time, I really want to talk about taking ideas from people, because in that game, yes, I was very happy to say, you know what, I've seen that some of these icons are not quite working. We need new icons. What could work? I asked on Twitter, I asked on Kickstarter, and I got some nice ideas. In the end, I decided, okay, stars and fish, and there was something else. Oh my gosh. But these were the things that are simple icons that people can definitely see. For whatever reason, we didn't do love hearts, but I redrew the eggs. Anyway, and then after that, so it was, okay, hey, here's a like an artist. I can't think of a nice name for the artist. It's currently just called the Pencil Sketcher and the Artist, which are fine names. Like, they work. The names don't need to be there. But it would be nice to have like a little pun in there to add a little. And so, do you have any ideas? And I think someone suggested Jackson Pollock's, which I quite enjoyed. And and then it occurred to me, oh, you could have Frankie's Bacon, and just, oh, that was the other one, the keys, and then like,
yes,
Bacon.
Sure. Yeah.
And so thinking about what names could these people be, kind of crowdsourcing puns. And sometimes it's like, hey, if no one comes up with anything, we've got like a fallback plan. But if we cannot come up with, but I don't think you want to have something where you say, I guarantee that I will do this, or I will change
yes, absolutely.
these numbers in the game.
Yes.
Or because numbers in a game, that's something that the designer should be thinking about themselves. But I agree with you, when it's from abroad, with, again, going back, when it was like, wow, this is done quite a bit better than I expected. What would you like to see? And people said, what we would really like to see is a slow mode for this game that you've just told us is super fast. And I was like, well, I did kind of vaguely say that it could be done. I kind of actually suggested that as one of the options. I said that it might be possible, it might not be. And then I played it and it worked fine. And so it's like, this isn't the way that is the main game, but this is a way you can play it. And so that adds value. It's not about me saying, I promise I will do a solo mode. It's a case of me saying, if people really want a solo mode, then I will spend time working out if it can be done. So it's a promise of an attempt rather than a promise of delivery. But then we've got the other side, which is this thing, where there are 4 different games, and there's already a lot going on because I've got 4 things to make. These are the first times that these are going to be in a box. And even though you might think, okay, it's exactly the same cards, no, it's not. Because suddenly I no longer need a front cover card. I no longer need the back cover card. I can rearrange things slightly. I might redo a bit of the text here and there. And the box itself, that things might go wrong. And, doing so many at once, there's a lot to think about. So I'm not really inspired to say, yes, we're going to change multiple things. But sure, if you want like a bonus sticker put in, then that's something that I'm willing to give you, potentially.
I mean, the contrast with the Gibsons one is very stark here, in that you are able in your Kickstarter and immediately before your Kickstarter to do quite a lot of development, particularly on the art.
I am
on
one
the
person.
artwork
I am
side.
able to
You're
swerve
able
and maneuver.
Yes. Well, with a larger project, you can't really do that. Swerving and maneuvering is rather difficult because
honestly, it's probably less to do with being one person and more to do with having relatively small projects.
Yes, because Kingmaker is a vast project, and actually changing stuff.
And it's not like you can ask people to say, "Hey, what do you fancy calling this king?" I mean,
not really. No, it's not. There's not that kind of flexibility. And also because Gibsons is a more of a traditional retail, their methods are geared to more of a traditional retail style of approach, which is quite formal and less flexible, I suppose, than quite a lot of small companies would find. It does give them massive advantages in that they've got, for example,
to many resources.
Access to resources, particularly now. But particularly like cardboard, because they produce jigsaws. They have long-standing contracts with companies for cardboard, so those can be used to get cardboard for making games. So they are very conscious. They want to get this into retail at a specific time. Now that is the driver, rather than the Kickstarter being the driver, which is really not the way most Kickstarters approach that particular difficulty. So it does mean, from the backer's point of view, it's great because they will get that game much earlier than you'd expect. I mean, it's down as March 2023 for delivery, which, when you think about it, it's only just finished. So that's only, what is it, 1, 2, 1, 2,
and again,
3,
considering
5
that
months.
it is a big box game, I mean, for a card game that might, it's going to be good quality. As you say, they've got access to paper and all these things.
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting to think about stretch goals. I think we've already talked about how stretch goals are kind of like, I think I'm really, I don't think I will ever do again a clear 100 people, I'll give you a thing. This much money, I'll give you a thing, or this many copies sold, I'll give you a thing. I would like to possibly gamify something. Like, if I think someone talked about doing something based on Board Game Arena plays, which is a really interesting idea, saying, okay, if we play this many times on Board Game Arena, I will include an extra thing, which is something that people can do very easily.
They all sound a bit gimmicky. They sound a bit gimmicky, though, don't they? I suppose people do like gimmicks.
It is. It is kind of disingenuous, and it kind of taps into that whole, I want you to do this thing. If you do that thing, I will give you this other thing. And I get that. I understand why it works from the marketing perspective. I understand that, there's no celebration here with suddenly, oh, we just passed £2,000. I mean, sure, it's a nice round number, but there's nothing additional to say, hey, we just passed this. There's no additional, okay, and as a result, you'll be all getting this extra thing.
Well, I think that's the same with the Gibsons, as it's their first Kickstarter. They went for keeping it straight and simple.
I think it was, as a result, a little bit more muted. and a little bit more
Yes.
less chatter maybe than on a Kickstarter where they do position it to be more of a party, if you know what I mean.
Yes. I think the approach that Gibsons have taken, which was absolutely the correct one, was to go with keeping it simple. What they're delivering is the game, and they're trying to target this. They're trying to get resonance with a large section of an audience that will be able to afford to buy this game. Now, a lot of the top end Kickstarter backers who really love really expensive things are saying, "Well, why don't you put miniatures and wooden pieces and people suggesting neoprene mat for the board, which would literally cost like 30 quid per copy to do at least." So it was really completely never going to happen, but theoretically you could. So there are people out there who would love to be able to spend £300 on Kingmaker. Now, interestingly, there might have been enough backers to do that, and if you got 500 backers paying 300 quid, you've got much more. I don't know, I haven't done the calculation. You've got more money than we've got with
Sure.
1,500 backers for this amount. But the trouble is, the point is, Gibsons, quite properly, I think, wants to make this as both a retail and a Kickstarter product, and doesn't want to make it into a deluxe elite product where you've got something very, very expensive, which will get you loads of money, but only have relatively few backers. And I think that's a key decision. So, I mean, so you could go for the whole big deluxe fanfare thing, and you would get a lot of money, but you might not resonate with the audience you're trying to resonate with, because you're really going for people who just want to play the deluxe big thing, and it cuts a lot of people out of the market. So I think this is a good approach to take, and I think there is a strong difference between Kickstarters which are trying to deliver to a large number of people, and Kickstarters which are going for deluxe, fancy, big things with lots of stuff. And I think there is
The
a
interesting
dichotomy
thing
between
is
those.
that
And
those
also
deluxe
then there's the
fancy
more
things sometimes reach a large number of people, and it's not clear that making something cheaper, sure, all else being equal, the cheaper thing will probably sell more. But it's also about the inbuilt audience. It's very much about that, because I've
yes, it
got
is.
I want to answer very quickly two questions that have been asked. So I'm going to answer these somewhat textually as well, but can I make empty boxes? Someone asked
Oh,
me,
right.
hey, could you, this might be too
Oh, I see.
complicated, but could you do some empty boxes? Because I've bought some of your Busy Bargain bags, and whilst the bags are fine, I would like some boxes. And I explained that I already answered this in text, but the reasons I gave that I don't want to do it are A, I've worked out already that it exactly fits a large letter, even that 1 millimeter will be too much. I mean, a sticker,
Right. Yeah.
I could probably get like a sticker because of the
Yes.
hardly any thickness in there. I could
Yeah.
probably even get 2 stickers, but like 10 sticker, oh no, I don't, genuinely, and certainly not an actual box. Like it was at the point where I was measuring it with having extra cards in, and Rob was getting
Yeah.
the calipers out so I could take it to the post office to double check that it's all worked in the packaging that I will be using once it goes for
Yes.
delivery, because that's important. And the second reason is that empty boxes, they are more likely to be crushed and destroyed in transit.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's flattened, then that might be folded, whereas a full box is less likely. And the third reason is, yes, it is going to cost me quite a bit. And are there actually enough people to want to do it?
Yeah.
Now, in
It's
theory,
extra effort. It's extra effort
yeah,
on your part
that's
as
the
well,
main big
which is a
thing, like the
main
hassle.
problem. Yeah.
Like, there's already a lot of moving parts with this thing, And I did think, yes, in theory, I could say, okay, this is print on demand. Do let's say 100 copies of the cards and 110 of the
110,
boxes.
yes, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if like how specific I can be, because I know there's like a minute, like a
Yes. There's
certain
usually a
number that.
10% up and down. Yeah.
Well, it's
Or
print on
I'm not sure
demand
with boxes.
rather.
Oh, it's print
So
on demand. Oh, okay.
so
Oh,
for
I see. It's
me,
different.
I think it's like multiples of like 54 or
Oh,
like
I see.
60.
Yeah, yeah,
It's multiples of a certain number, but whatever that
yeah.
number is, I could potentially do it. But then that's another thing that I need to think about, another thing that I need to work out how to put in the envelope. And it feels like something that, unless there's at least 10 or 50 people, really, if there's
Yeah.
50 people wanting a thing, then I would do it because it makes sense given my current print on demand logistics. But if there's like one person or even two people,
Yeah. It's not
probably not. Sorry.
probably not, yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I mean, going back to the neoprene mats, yes, it would be possible, for example, to have offered on the Kickstarter an add-on for having a limited number, like six backers could have neoprene mats, but and you just cost it, and you just say you can have a neoprene mat, it's going to cost you 100 quid, and you'd probably get 6 backers who'd have it. But the problem is somebody has to arrange the production and shipping of those neoprene mats, and that's just an extra effort which you can really do without. It would be very nice, and I think it's more of a thing for secondary market rather than Kickstarter, I think, probably.
and if you could again work out that there's definitely like 50 people who are happy to get this thing,
Yeah.
then,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Oh
that
yes, then it
almost
becomes
means
worthwhile.
that it's probably going to be an additional Kickstarter, which is
Yes.
because if Kingmaker, let's say it had gone to 10,000 people, at that point you might be able to say, you know what, there are probably 50 people who would like this expensive edition. Let's take advantage of that. I don't know.
Well, we're already lodging the idea that there might be a deluxe expansion for Kingmaker. Since it's been quite successful, there's already this idea that maybe you go with with pimping a certain number of components and offering that in another Kickstarter, because there will be takers. I mean, obviously, will be takers for that, and if it can be costed accurately, then I would think you could certainly do that.
Now, the other thing is advice for Kickstarter creators. So I've gotten this a couple of times from first timers who are saying, hey, I want to make a game and I want to do the same thing as you. And like I'm impressed by your success. And it kind of feels like the implied message is, how can I see the same success that you're having with a similar project? And this is going to sound kind of harsh, but one thing that I would say is, for your first project, yes, make it as cheap as you possibly can. Like for my first thing, which was now known as Yogi, back then it was In a Bind, I very specifically thought, what's a game that I can make using one deck of cards, because that is cheap to produce. Even like 2 decks of cards, like that's possible, but even that is too complex. Like a
That's
deck
what we
of
did.
cards, single
That's
deck
what we
of
did.
cards.
We did that with Surprise Day Games. Our first product was one deck of cards, and that's for exactly the same reason.
Easy to get out, easy to print. It's been done so many times. And then get it in a talk box and be like, this is the game. Now, the other bit of advice I'd give is, and this is where I'm going to be a little bit harsh, is that I see lots of things which are frankly underdeveloped. I see people bring games to playtest and I play them and I'm like, yeah, this is fun. And you could do a lot of other things. Like I've seen games that are actually good and they could be great, but they need another few months of development. And they might go to a convention, and if you ask people at a convention, how fun was this, rate it out of 5, I don't know if that necessarily tells you whether it's ready for publishing or not. Because I think that those ratings are based on the assumption that this is still a work in progress. People, even if you
Yes.
don't tell them that, they will kind of understand, okay, this is still a work in progress. I think that's a big thing I would say is work out how you can make that first thing as good as you can possibly make it. Because sure, I'm going to call it in a bind, but please don't look to buy in a bind. It's called Yogi, and I still love the new version. But when I
I
launched it,
yeah.
it wasn't necessarily as good as it can possibly be, but it had gone through like a year of constant playing, like every month at every, and then at the like with feedback from amazing people like Brett, like Matthew
Yes.
Dunstan,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Rob
Yeah. Exactly.
Paris, and
Yes. Yeah.
then going to a convention. And the key thing was, are people asking to buy it? That was the key
I
thing. Like when I took it to
yeah.
Dragon Meet, people were like, oh, this is brilliant. I want to buy it. That
Yes.
told me
Yes.
that it was worth making.
Yeah.
And
I
then when
think
I continued taking it to other places, and then you played it, I think a few months before. No, it was. Has it just been released when I showed it
I
to you? Was it like
can't even
physical?
remember.
But anyway, the point
I
is, like people, I think that's the key thing that you want to say: are people willing to buy it? And honestly, I see people, and I'm going to be a little bit even more unkind. Some people might put up, "Hey, I've got this idea for a card," and in one instance, I've been, "Hey, that card sounds like it has problems. I would advise you to consider why you have this card in your game." And they say, "Oh no, it's fine. I've played it a few times. It's always gone well." Um,
Mhm.
and sure, but a card that forces you to look through an entire deck is going
That's
to
not a
slow
good
the game
idea.
down
Yes.
for any new time player. And I think any
I mm,
experienced game designer can tell you that.
yeah.
And
I think that I would go.
sorry,
I would go. I would question your advice for Kickstarter creators. I just question
you would question
that
the advice
concept.
of doing a lot of
I w-
development.
no. I would. Why are you giving advice for Kickstarter creators? I think that really are you giving advice for game designers? And if you've got a game,
Oh.
if you've got a game designer who is basically saying, I'm a Kickstarter creator, I think that's jumping the gun. You've got to be a game
Mm.
design. If you're doing game design, you've got to be a game designer first. You're not designing a game in order to put it on Kickstarter and get some money. That's not what you're doing. You're designing games because you like designing games, because you want to make the best games that you can. The Kickstarter is simply a mechanism for getting to market. So I would say that if you want to be a serious game designer, you're not focused simply on getting stuff on Kickstarter. I mean, and you aren't, Bez. I mean, we know that that's not the be all and end all. You have to be you have to be a game designer first, and a publisher, Kickstarter creator second. And I'm always a bit
And
suspicious
this
if I
is
get
like
approached.
obviously for if you're publishing other people's stuff, then this doesn't quite apply. I talked to Ben Townsend the
No,
other
it's
day,
definitely yeah.
who's finding a lot
No,
of joy in developing other people's things.
absolutely.
And
That's different. That's different.
but if you
But
are self-publishing, yeah, maybe I should put self-publisher second. Yeah,
yes,
I
but
agree with you.
I have been approached quite a few times now over the last this year by a lot of budding game designers who are basically saying, well, the typical one is I've got an idea for a game, which means they're not a game designer yet, but or I've got this game and I made a prototype and all my friends and family love it and stuff, and you dig it underneath the surface and you find that's the only game they've got. They haven't got any more ideas or any other games or anything else that's in the pipeline or anything. So in other words, they've just got that they've had one idea which they developed into a game, and that's as far as it's gone. Now that means that they haven't quite got it yet, and they need to do more than have a single game. I don't think there are many not only many published game designers that I know of who have only ever had one game. There's it just doesn't
Yeah,
happen
like there
because you
are
have to
people
have
who
a
have
lot of
like one
different things.
massive hit,
Oh
but
yes, absolutely. But
like
you've always
even
got
And you
more
know,
than
can you remind me the name of the designer of Jenga?
I can't remember.
But like Dave continued to work on other things,
Yes.
and I've looked at the and you know Jenga is it's a really nice game. Let's be honest, Jenga is really
You'd have to say that, yes, definitely, yeah. But
and similarly Don
having
Eskridge, who I'm having on tomorrow. I'm sure they would love to have a success equal to the Resistance and Resistance Avalon,
yes,
but their first published game is possibly you know and I would love to have a bigger hit than Yogi. Will it happen? Maybe, maybe not. We will have to see. And that's, I think that Yogi could see much bigger success than it's already received. Because, I think
so I
that
think
when we talk
what I've
about advice for the actual Kickstarter, I think that, yes, if you're sending someone something to a reviewer and they've got some caveats, look at them and really think about, is there anything valid here? And I want to say the big thing is that when people look at what I've done and the kind of the thing that seems to be implied is I am sad that my Kickstarter is not having as much success as your Kickstarter,
yeah.
even though I've maybe done more marketing, I've spent more time on this. And to those people, I would say it's because I've been at it for many, many years.
Yes, you need
And
to get the experience. You absolutely need to get the experience, and it's attention to detail. I mean, one of the things that's very noticeable with your designs, Bets, we do. Well, I think when you're serious about this, you always do. You will concentrate if there's a card which isn't quite right out of 50 cards. You'll concentrate on that card, and you'll play around with how it works, and you'll make minor changes, and you'll make sure that that card is as good as all the rest of the cards. So it's that attention to detail that makes things work, even in something which looks like it's a relatively simple, straightforward idea. The amount of effort that goes into making it work and making it look simple and obvious is astonishing in a lot of cases. That's it, how much you've trimmed of stuff that wasn't important in there. You know, how you have changed the artwork so it's much just it pops into your mind as the image you want. That concentration on detail is what makes the game. So I would that's one of the things you want. I'd say
thank you
to
very much.
a
And I
budding game
really
designer.
appreciate that. And one other thing I would say is that, yes, in the past year ish, I have done a lot of stuff that I've spent less time and, I'm going to admit, less effort on than I historically spent on Yogi or Kitty Cataclysm or any of the original 5 games or couple as well for the L deck. But this is me presenting people with an option to buy it for £5, which feels very different than doing that and then presenting people with an option to buy it for £10 or £20 or
Yes,
more. And
that's one of the that's one of the things. Just to reinforce that, one of the things I worry about all the time, if it's an expensive game, or even not just an expensive game, but if it's like if somebody's paying 20 quid or if somebody's paying 65 quid for Kingmaker, the things that keep me up at night is, have we got everything as right as we possibly can? Now I know that because it's such a big project, there are going to be things in there which people will object to. That's inevitable. But have we done everything we possibly can within the time frame and the circumstances and the team that we've got to make that as good as we possibly
I mean,
can do?
years after, do
That's
you
what
people are
stresses me. That's what stresses
finding
me out.
small, Snowdonia big box, there's this tiny thing in there. Like, do you have anything like, Bob? Yeah, what's your take on that? Because like that is a big box, and there might be like a tiny typo or
Well,
whatever.
Snowdonia, the big box Snowdonia had got lots of typos and lots of errors on the cards in Snowdonia, the big box. So much so that we worked with NSKN on producing the little Isle of Man small box, which had a whole bunch of errated cards.
So how did
which were
that?
just literally.
Was that? Do you feel like that was that inevitable? Was that a failing on your part? Sorry to be so blunt.
No, well, no. The thing is, we weren't directly involved in the Kickstarter or in production, so it was a failure of NSKN. Which, to be fair, they put their hands up, so they produced the extra thing. It probably would have been avoidable if they had involved. Well, I was going to say me, which is a bit arrogant, but I was capable and actually willing, for example, to do some proofreading. But they're a bigger company, and I think they were confident that they could do the work on that big game without having an extra proofreader who actually knew the product. So I think that's a lesson learned, really, from that one. So. It's one of those pitfalls that can happen if you've got this style of product. To be fair, it's why you get second editions of games, isn't it? Because there can be errors in the first.
It sounds like, but this upgrade pack was sent out, and I think the real lesson there is that you need more people to look at it is always better. But B, you want people who know the thing to be looking at it.
Yes,
it's not.
That's one of the reasons.
Internal.
That's right. That's one of the reasons why I have been rigorous. I hope as rigorous. Like I said, this is the kind of thing that stresses me out. I've been rigorous at checking the all the stuff for Kingmaker, all the rules, which is like 80-page rule book, and the solo designer Steve Froud, who's done a fantastic job.
Even though you're not the project manager
well.
from a logistics perspective, you are basically the project manager from a. This is the writing, and what is that fair to say, or is that overblowing it a bit?
I'm not the project manager. No, I am the. Well, I suppose you could say I'm the kind of editor. I'm the writer of the rules,
you
and
are
also the
someone
editor.
who supplies the creative direction. Like not the type. Like project management is about logistics and everything.
I advise,
but you have you are like the one person who's, because you've done all the developments, you're keeping this cohesion and making sure everything makes sense in the scope of the developments. Which, let's be honest, if games, I need to read this book by C.T. Nguyen, which is about agency as art, where games, the whole point of a game is that whereas films are about the moving images and the sounds, and music is about the sounds, and that's the medium that you express yourself in games, fundamentally the art parts of a game is about the agency, in that, but yes, of course, the visuals and sounds, if there's a digital game or whatever, or if you are playing LARP and there's some audio track playing, I don't know, but all of that can inform the agency. But I think the person who is responsible for the lead, I'm going to say the lead developer in board game parlance, does kind of need to see it through to its end and keep an eye on to make sure that where nothing comes in the typesetting or anything like that.
Yes, I mean, I'm a developer I'm the lead developer in that sense, but I would stress that as a lead developer, I don't necessarily have the final say on production decisions.
Absolutely.
I'm advising the team on the implications of production decisions, and very often I am injecting materials in there to suggest that this will be a good idea, or not doing that. Don't do that because of X, Y, and Z. Do this because of A, B, and C. But the actual decision has to be a production decision because they live and die on it. It's not my. My life as a company, my life as a person doesn't depend completely on this product. Whereas if there's really major cock-ups in it, it's going to have a big impact on the company. So I am a development lead in that sense. But I would also say, because I'm not a visual person, really, me, as you probably are aware. So other people are doing the visual stuff. So I'm going to be hot on things like the mechanics and how things should fit together and what the player experience should be like. But in terms of kind of visuals, actual component design, things like that, I can chip in, but that's not my speciality. Yeah. So that I think that the Kickstarter stuff that I've been involved in always been team effort, because this usually larger Kickstarters than yours, which means that, for example, with Two Tomatoes, they have got a really, really good visual guy who does Kickstarter pages. So he does that work. He is brilliant at that. And the partners in the process will chip in with what we think and assess what he's done and usually tick it all off. And we will be responsible maybe for the words, but the guy who's really, really good at visuals, he does his bit. If we're really good at the words, then we'll do our bit on the words. And in a way, the Gibsons thing is similar. That Ralph Anderson, who's been the Kickstarter project manager, he knows what he's doing in the project management. So for example, he will know when we should be putting out project updates. He will make sure that we answer the comments properly. So he's managing the day-to-day, hour-to-hour technicalities of the Kickstarter, and my role is not to do that. My role is to contribute comments. If the people are asking for comments about the rules or whatever, I can answer those because I know the answers, and I've done a whole string of developer notes, which helps to support the project. But everybody in the Gibsons team has their own role. We've got a really strong team at Gibsons who
would you say that having
that
the support of such a big team insulates you a little bit emotionally?
I suppose in a way it helps because we are making joint decisions. It does help. I think it helps with the emotions. Knowing that you're not on your own is really, really helpful, especially if sometimes you have to make a controversial decision, and you have to know the reasons why you're doing it and be able to show that you're showing to the backers that you've done due diligence and it's a coherent decision. And it might not be what a section of the backers want, but you have to be able to explain that. And in general, backers are really good once if you've explained things, if you've communicated to people why you've done things in the way that you've done things. Backers are really appreciative. Even if they don't agree with the decision, they'll say, yeah, I respect that decision, and it doesn't change the fact they're going to back the project. We're still in there. That bit I don't particularly like, but it's not a deal breaker. And that's the good thing. That's the good thing about having a team, is that team spirit. You're in it together. You've checked that you've made the proper decisions because you've got a team.
It's really nice to just talk things through with people. Yeah, and I think that's we have been chatting quite a bit longer than
we have
like to do,
don't we?
But I mean, not that I don't like chatting to, but you know what I mean. Let's ask the question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Sorry, there's a lots of wind here. My question is going to... Yeah, do you have a question for me, Alan?
I don't have a question at the moment. I have been a bit
my
stressed
question
out.
for you, just looking at my Kickstarter, is...
Go for it.
What's the last compliment you remember receiving, and why did you like it? Okay, so the last compliment I read was this morning, someone saying, when I shouted out to a few people who I feel have helped me and supporting me, and someone said, oh, it's so easy to support you, Bez, your games are brilliant. And happy to be on this list. It was some days written something along those lines. And that feels like, I was thanking them, and so their compliments, not only did they say, "Oh, your games are brilliant," but also saying, "Oh, it's so easy to support you," made it feel like a natural extension of that, and it made it feel like, "Hey, this is the natural state of affairs, and don't worry about it. This is freely given," and that was, I guess, just that phrase. It's easy to do. There's something really nice about that. It's not saying you're welcome, or but saying it's a joy or it's easy to do. I think there's
Yes,
something really
yeah,
nice about that phrase.
that is nice. Yes, that's yeah. I mean, mine. I mean, I think the one that struck me, and going back to my own blind man trumpet again, but
No, go for it.
demoing March of Progress at Spiel to two German guys who were both historians, and they really got it. They said, "Oh, we really love this because you just tweak a couple of the rules and change a couple of the cards, and it completely changes the nature of how you approach the game, and it seems to give that historical authenticity."
Mm-mm.
And the interesting thing was they. I know that they did buy the game in English, even though they could have got the copies in German. They specifically bought the English copies, which was kind of wonderful as well. But I just found that having people who are complimenting the game who really obviously get it and they saw I think it's going back to we got that resonance
Because
right
it was
with the
specific. It
game.
sounds like a really specific thing that they could
Yeah.
understand what made that game a little bit different from others, and
Yes.
they could
Yes.
understand what you were going for,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is really, really lovely.
Which is really lovely. Yeah. That was really nice.
So at this point, as always, over to you. What are you up to? You can share what's if you want to. I am going to write to Kickstarter updates. I'm going to catch up with messages. I'm going to make put out an email on my mailing list and little bits of Kickstarter related stuff. And then I'm
Sounds
going
good.
to
Mhm.
go out for a couple of hours because it's important to, be away from the screen.
Thank you very much for reminding me of that, because one of the things I have failed to do since Essen is actually go out and have a walk. We need to do
Hmm.
that. We need to go out and have a walk. I haven't been doing yoga. Been trying to do yoga every day since January, and I have failed miserably this
I
month,
mean, I
which
don't
is
do an
terrible.
extended bits of
But
yoga, but because I
yeah,
am maybe unembarrassed, I went over into the park and
mm,
standing on the
mm,
bridge, watching the ducks. I kind of did a bit of stretching for
yeah,
5-6 minutes, which just for the duration of one song, and then walked back. And it
yeah,
was
yeah.
lovely having that time to stretch, even though it wasn't like a proper half hour or whatever thing.
I
You don't need
really,
to do
really,
it.
really need to do that. I need to do that. But on the other hand, I'm doing some work on a certain game that involved gnomes in its original incarnation,
Mm,
which you'll be glad. I'm sure you'll be
exciting.
glad to hear, Bez, that we're actually doing that.
I am very happy
And
about that.
well, I
And I
thought you
just
might
want to
be.
say the thematic things that you said seemed absolutely fine. Um,
Right.
so,
Good.
that,
We'll
but
come back. We need a whole show on that game, don't we? Don't you
yeah,
think?
we could just
We
have
do.
a.
Mm.
I mean, there's nothing private about that game, is there? Or
No,
is
no,
there?
no, no, no. I don't think so. No, no.
Okay,
It's well, its
so
current working title is The Last Bug Standing in the Circle of Doom.
mm,
That's its current working title. I quite like
have
it,
you
but then
taken inspiration from my rather long titles?
I have actually. Yes, that was one of the reasons why I thought there's nothing wrong with a long title. It's a Bez game.
I love
This
it.
is. Oh well, can I? Should we have a minute? This is a
Sure.
game that Bez. This is a game that Bez designed in 2017 or 16, something like that, for the board game redesign competition which we did at UK Games Expo. And it's a fairly abstract game. It involves moving a piece in order to move another piece, in order to move another piece, and possibly remove a tile. And it's translating into The Last Bug Standing, which is your little mascot alien guy who must live at the end in the circle of doom, because the end board is a circle of tokens of the various bug-eyed monsters that
And
you want to
you
kill off
kind
and
of
survive.
you care about one of these more than the others, and you just
Yes,
want them to survive this
that's it.
genocidal human who's coming
Yes,
in and killing
yes,
everything.
exactly. Yes, it's hopefully artwork by Vicky Denton. Excuse me. Good grief, I haven't been Vicky Paul for a while. By Victoria Denton, who's my daughter. So that will be really good. I'm hoping, in a way, that Vicky will do the artwork in the style of Bez. Actually, be quite nice, wouldn't it? What do you think?
That would be very exciting, but I mean, it, hopefully not too much in the style of me, because then you just want me to do it. It's like, because Vicky does bring a lot of stuff to the table.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
but yes, the other things
Anyway,
that we can look forward to, other than the Kickstarter and that game, which I'm very excited about, and actually heading out of the house, is we're going to see each other at KCON. I am going to be going there
yes.
tomorrow, and I will be doing my stream, and then I'll probably, some of my clothes are wet still. I'll do my clothes packing afterwards. But
We'll be there on Sunday. I'll bring Kingmaker, because why wouldn't I? And War of the Three Sanchos, which is our next SSG game. I could bring the Last Bug Standing in the Circle of Doom game, but it won't have the proper artwork. It'll still be in its other incarnation. Do you think I should bring it? I could bring it.
It's
a bit
entirely up to
It's a
you.
bit prototypey.
I mean, you're only there for one day, so I would almost encourage you to just spend a bit of time enjoying yourself and playing stuff.
I think we might well do that. I think.
I mean,
enjoying
my
ourselves
2
is
p.m.
something we want
event
to do.
might be a bit frantic for you. It's going to be a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your vegetables. And what I did at Tabletop Scotland, and I hope to keep doing, is on the previous day, allowing people to colour stuff in. And then colouring in a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your radishes, which is the super hard mode. And of course, it being the super hard mode is made even harder if every card is coloured in by a different person.
Yes, that's going to be great.
And so that was hilarious at Tabletop Scotland. And I'm really excited to having it run at KCON. Yeah. So that's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But we do need to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So to recap and wrap up, we kind of chatted about Spiel. We said that I have not taken any notes. This is how good let's see how well I remember everything. We talked about how demos are brilliant when they're run by the right person, and some demos are less brilliant, but demos for Kickstarter games allows people to feel them and it allows them to resonate. I think resonance is such a strong word. I think that we talked about the virtues of having a team, how things can go wrong afterwards, the ability of smaller people to change and be a little bit more adaptable and listen to people, and maybe even if it's something as small as changing the name on the cards, that's always nice. Although I will point out that with my latest Kickstarter, everything is done, and I'm not sure that I'm willing to change anything. It's going to be a very much get these things to print straight away, and I think people will hopefully be surprised by, fingers crossed, how quickly they get the stuff. So this is very much it's totally done. We talked about advice for Kickstarter creators, which is fundamentally be a game designer first and make sure that you've got multiple things. And if your take is, I want to put this on Kickstarter because I've got other game ideas and I want to get to them and I want to get this out of the way, no, you can work on multiple things at once. And don't feel like you have to rush something just so that you can start working on the next one. That's not good times. And in terms of making stuff more complicated, potentially adding empty boxes or, mats, then, that needs to be done in a very judicious manner. And people need to be understanding that even, like, sure, in theory, it's not that much for me to do one thing special for one person. But, I mean, Jamie Stegmaier said something a while ago, which was basically saying, if you're doing something for one person, you should kind of be willing to offer it for everyone, which I kind of agree with. Like, if I say I am willing, sure, I will sign your game, I shouldn't really do that unless I'm willing to sign everyone's games and make it out to them. And that's when I can say, yeah, sure, I will add this thing, which does make me realize that I never actually offered customization as an option, which I normally do. But oh well. And we talked about going after the Kickstarter. We talked about one last bug standing in the Circle of Doom, which might be the next game. I think that's correct to say, the next.
That's correct. Yes.
Surprise Terror Games. And that brings us to our close. Is there anything else that I missed?
No, but I have got my book of the fortnight, which is this one, Unboxed Board Game Experience and Design by Gordon Kaleja.
So you're halfway through it, as I deduce from the
because I've got my It's an academic take, a sociological, philosophical take on what board game experience and design means. So I'll let you know what it's like when I finished. But so far, it's been very interesting. Some of the bits I don't agree with, as you might expect, but it's taking a social scientific view of board game design and board game experience and design. So what does that mean? Well, read the book and find out. It's actually really quite interesting and fun. If you want to have a look at that. I know Rob Harper's got a copy as well, so we've agreed we're going to chat it through once we both read it, I think.
Nice. I feel like it would be almost nice to have a chapter by chapter thing, or a, depending on the length of the chapters, like, split it into 4 parts and then talk about it.
Have you got a copy of that book, Ben?
I do not have a copy of that book. Okay. I've got a bit too
happy
much
to lend it. Happy to lend it to you if you want to read it when I finish.
I might actually take you up on that at some point in the future next year before I leave. I would not borrow it and then take it to another country. Or I guess if I'm in another country for only a couple of months, that might still be okay.
Might still be okay, yep.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, yes. So if you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all of the places. And of course, you can check out stuffbybez.com/streams. Tomorrow I am chatting to Don Eskrich, which I am excited to do. It's going to, tomorrow we'll be just meeting them, and then a week afterwards it'll be kind of chatting a bit more about some specific designy topic. And of course, please do check out, after that I'll be going to KCON. Please do check out my Kickstarter, which is right here, which I'm really proud of the Kickstarter URL that I've got. Games About Stuff.
Yes. That's quite a busy one, isn't it?
I don't know how I can improve on that. So I feel like this is the peak.
I think you should make it longer. It's not long enough.
I mean, it is just the URL. So
games about stuff involving cars with pictures on them and taking them and comparing with other things and talking about them.
No, that's too long for Kickstarter. 60 characters limit.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I deliberately changed the name just before generating the URL so that I could have a short URL.
Oh, very good. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Speaking of contacting people, Surprise Tag Games. Too long as a URL, but there you go. SurpriseTagGames.co.uk. That's where we are. I'm Bentham Fish on various places. But if you want to get in contact with me and talk about things, it's best on email, alan@alanpaull.co.uk or alan@surprisetaggames.co.uk. I do have a blog.
They both go to the same inbox, right?
They do, yes. And I've got a blog if you want to have a look at my ramblings
And please share, spread the word. I want to say thank you to everyone who's been here today, who's said hello, asked the questions, or just to the various people, because I see the numbers of people watching. We've had a few lurkers. So even if you don't feel confident enough to say hello, or if you just enjoy listening to us, well, I don't know, your fingers are tapping away, maybe you're doing some other work of your own. But thank you for being here. And most importantly, thank you, Alan, for continuing to be such a lovely guest. It is always
It's a
lovely to
pleasure,
chat.
man. It's a pleasure. Thanks you very
And
much. See you
there
soon,
is,
hopefully. Yes.
yes, see you Sunday.
Mm,
But until
yeah.
then, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Do, 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 bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Goodbye, bye, bye, bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time
Bye
to
bye.
go. Bye, bye.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.